6 eating changes that I've made to help me feel and look and perform better at 48 than 28. Want to know what they are? Stick around. All right, guys, so over the years, I've gone through a lot of different things when it comes to my nutrition. Now, overall, my nutrition has stayed pretty much the same. I do not get caught up very often in trends, at least not anymore, at least for the past 10 or 12 years right now. But there are some things that I have changed in my eating that is going to really help myself and I think could really help you. Number one is going to be focusing less on the quality of foods and more on the quantity of foods. So right now you're probably saying, well, that's the opposite of everything I hear. And yes, it is. It's also not quite right. So let me explain. For the better part of 46 years, at least till I cared about health, let's say from my mid to late 20s to a couple years ago, I was all about the quality of food, making sure everything is really clean, really this, really that, everything was whole. And then I was always going though, but I'm not reaching the body composition, the feeling, the look. I'm not getting what I want to get for all the healthy foods that I've been eating. I do whole wheat instead of white. I do brown instead of whatever. You know, I was just getting on my nerves. So then I said, you know what? I'm going to start tracking. And then I started tracking. I was like, oh my goodness, there's such big changes that I made because of my tracking. There's so many things that I saw. And I was just like, okay, I'm adding way too many oils, for instance, into my, even though they're good oils, which we're going to talk about in a minute, I'm just getting way too many calories. So then what I did is I said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to track my calories. And I'm even going to experiment with maybe screwing around with just different, quote unquote, regular foods. And it turned out I actually got leaner eating the raw regular foods and all this like fancy stuff. So nowadays, what I do is I tell people you should treat everything you eat like a fine wine when you can, but don't get stressed about it. So this is what I will tell you. Eat the best quality foods you can, but in the right amounts for what you need, providing that it doesn't, break the bank or stress you out. You can be eating, and this happens to a lot of clients. They come to me and they're overweight, 20, 30, 40 pounds overweight. And when we look at their foods, I'm like, okay, the food choices you're making are pretty good, but then the amounts are way out. It's either too low protein or too high fat or too high carb or just too high calories in general. One of the biggest changes that I've made now is really dialing in on the quantity and slacking and being a little bit loose sometimes on the quality. Now, number two, as I mentioned, is just not adding fats to everything. I'd sit there and I'd make spaghetti with ground beef and I put olives on top. They go, oh, but wait, you need to add the extra virgin heart healthy olive oil. So I'd pour on the olive oil, or I'd be cooking eggs. I'm like, oh, but wait, you need to use the ghee for the eggs. I stopped adding fats. Trust me, guys, for the most part, unless you're just eating tuna and chicken breasts, for the most part, all of you are getting in more than enough fats. One of the biggest problems with today's eating is not getting enough fat. It's getting way too much fat. So the first thing I do with my clients, and they all start dropping fat. And by the way, testosterone levels start going up, because as you lose body fat, your testosterone levels will go up because you are not fat because your testosterone is low. Your testosterone is low because you are fat and overweight. So I cut back on their fats. We really dial that into about 50, 60 grams a day on average, 20 to 30% of the calories. Testosterone fires up, they muscle up, they lose the fat. So not adding good fats to everything. Now, if you want to eat just chicken breasts and shrimps and whatever else out there, cans of tuna that's super, super lean, you're not getting any fats, and yeah, start adding in really good quality, good fats. Go for it. But if you're just adding fats because they're good onto meals that already have more than enough, you're screwing yourself, and you're screwing yourself over bad. Number three, I don't get caught up in superfoods. For the longest time, I've even written magazine articles about superfoods. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great foods. I eat black garlic, which is, quote unquote, a superfood. I eat watercress. But all the superfoods I eat, guys, are just pretty normal things. I think my black garlic is $3.99. My watercress is $2. My pomegranate seeds, I buy the big ones, frozen ones, and the I think they're like $4 for a big bag of them. I don't get caught up in all the fancy things. Like, you don't need to have acai berries over blueberries. Turns out blueberries are better for you anyway. You don't need to do all these fancy superfoods. I don't go and follow the kale rainbow anymore. I just eat spinach and lettuce, or go to my garden and I pick some beet leaves. So I don't chase superfoods anymore, and I don't get caught up in all these superfood trends that are really popular on Instagram. Number four is I'm back pretty good in with supplements. Now, I go back and forth on supplements a lot, but I will say this. If you know which supplements you need, and I've done DNA testing, sometimes I'll do blood testing, sometimes I look at environment, I look at geography, I look at lifestyle, and I go, okay, well, because I use the sun a lot and I exercise a lot, probably adding in some electrolytes is a good idea. Adding in some citrulline is really good for my circulation. A protein powder, whether you consider that a supplement or not. There's other ones that, like DIM, that I'll use now and then, just because when I did a DNA test, it shows that I'm not very good at detoxifying estrogens and kind of getting rid of them. So DIM helps with that. So I find for myself, vitamin D and magnesium. Magnesium helps with my sleep a lot. Most people are deficient in that. Vitamin D, even people in sunny places like Thailand tend to be deficient in vitamin D. So I find that, with or without supplements, I do feel, look, and perform better if I am using some supplements. Number five, speaking of supplements, creatine. I use creatine a lot. Now, for the longest time, and I can tell you, they probably don't remember, but if you ask me back in my mid-30s when I was all about, trying all the different supplements, I literally told people creatine sucks and it doesn't work. Well, no. What's happening was I wasn't working. I wasn't drinking enough water. You need water. My fitness program sucked. I talked about that in my other video because I was exercising and not training, and I was not taking enough creatine. I'm 6'4", 200 and about 15 to 220 pounds. So I take 10 grams a day, where before I was only taking 5, and doing it consistently, taking my creatine every single day. I now have an order where it replenishes. So right before the other bottle ends, if I'm taking it consistently, and I know I am because it says it has 100 servings, and then my next bottle shows up 90 days later and I'm almost out, whatever that is, then I know I'm using it consistently, and it has made some really big changes. And number 6, this is more of a health thing. This is not necessarily about physique, for example, like body fat and muscle mass, but really decreasing high heat foods. When you grill foods at really high temperatures, such as grilling, even air frying to a point, and I love air fryers, I got one right behind me, you do get what's called AGEs, which is advanced glycation end products, which is basically just creating foods that are really high in free radicals that can lead to inflammation and really just early and premature aging, skin getting a little bit older, just kind of drying you out a little bit, starting from the inside. It's not great for your cardiovascular system. If you do eat a lot of high heated foods, there's things you can do, like making sure you're eating your vegetables, your fruits, your antioxidants, because that can counteract against the AGEs. Having the antioxidants really helps fight those free radicals. But overall, I do think it's a good idea to try to bring in more steaming, more sauteing, some more raw foods if they're foods that are better, because some foods are better raw, some foods are better cooked, and doing things more like stews and just really having low heat foods. So that's one thing that I've really tried changing, is having just a lot less high heated foods. And I rarely have deep fry, and I rarely have barbecue. So there you go, guys. Hope those 6 things helped. And of course, I'm here till next time to help you do what? Well, live leaner, stronger, longer, and a heck of a lot better. Hey guys, thanks for watching, and if you like this video, make sure you check out this one right here. And when you're at the gym, driving, out on a walk or run, and you want to hear lots more great content but in your ears, make sure to check out my Barbells to Buddhas podcast on your favorite podcast app.